So you guys might remember a while back I had a debate with another YouTuber who goes by Skeptical Human, and one of the issues brought up in the debate is whether or not taxation is theft. Well, here's a clip where Anton thinks he makes a good point. He thinks he's debunked the whole idea that taxation is theft. Let's take a look.
One of my biggest problems with libertarian arguments on this side is how they use so many oversimplified comparisons and analogies between like petty theft where some robber pops out of a dark alleyway and says give me your money, and they compare that against taxation.
So how exactly is this an oversimplification? I mean, sure, taxation might not appear identical to a mugging that occurs on the street, but at its essence the same process is basically happening. Someone is threatening you with violence in order to get money from you. In either scenario, you're paying not because you value the product or service you're being provided like you would in a marketplace, but simply to avoid the threat of physical violence. The fact that the IRS may have a more formal and indirect process of going about it than the street mugger doesn't change what's essentially going down.
It's used to, build infrastructure and treat the water at the water treatment plants and make sure that meat factories aren't, filling their food with all sorts of contaminants and poisons and stuff like that.
Red herring.
This kind of misses the whole point. The issue at hand is whether or not taxation, a process by which money is collected using the threat of violence, is in fact a form of theft. The fact that the money is arguably spent on good things has absolutely no bearing on that at all. And if these are all services that there's a clear need and demand for, then why wouldn't people figure out how to provide these things voluntarily through the marketplace as opposed to through coercion?
I think these sort of comparisons are extremely oversimplified and frankly ridiculous when you just look at what happens in an actual robbery versus what happens with taxation.
Well, again, it's essentially the same process that's at play. Someone is threatening you with violence in order to get money from you. The fact that the government might have fancy pieces of paper saying it's justified, or might arguably be using it in ways that are good, doesn't change the reality of what's happening. Yeah.
I have never experienced a mugging where somebody says, "Hands up, give me a fraction of your money."
Hey pal, you just blowing from Stupid Town?
Why does that matter? I mean, theft is theft. If I go and pickpocket $20 from somebody, does it matter that I didn't take every last penny to their name?
So that I can use it to improve your life and society around you. Doesn't happen very often.
I agree that would be a very strange form of a robbery, in which the robber used the money to buy something good for me. However, if I didn't consent to or agree to the transaction to begin with, then it's still robbery nonetheless. I'll use the analogy commonly used by Larkin Rose. Suppose someone mugs you for $100 and hands you a moldy sandwich. Does the fact that you got a moldy sandwich out of the encounter suddenly mean you weren't mugged? Would you in that situation feel like being given a moldy sandwich suddenly justifies what happened to you? Most likely not. The biggest problem with this video is that Anton basically misses the whole point right from the onset. Instead of trying to attack the core of the argument, which is that taxation, being money obtained through a threat of violence, is essentially no different from theft, Anton instead goes on this whole tangent about how the wonderful good things that taxation pays for, which the things paid for by taxation may be wonderfully swell, but that has absolutely zero bearing on whether or not the money is obtained coercively and therefore is theft. You see, Anton could in theory argue that taxation is justified in spite of being theft, if he wants to emphasize all the good things that taxation pays for, but that doesn't seem to be the approach that he wants to take. He seems to want to debunk the idea that taxation is theft, which if you're going to do that, try and argue against what we're actually trying to argue. So yeah, in terms of trying to debunk that taxation is theft, this video is an utter failure. Anton has a lot more of these debate clips. I plan on tackling a lot more of them as well, so stick around if that's something you're interested in seeing. Until next time, this has been Philosophossum, making stupidity play dead. Everyone take care.